we are not free until all of us are free. So love your neighbor. Please treat her kindly. Ask her story and then shut up and listen. Black, Asian, poor, wealthy, trans, cis, Muslim, Christian, listen, and then yell at the top of your lungs. Be a voice for all those who have prisoner tongues, for the people who had to grow up way too young. There is work to be done. There are songs to be sung. Lord knows there's a war to be won.
It's Friday, January 26, 2018. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week, I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, that's right, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. On this week's show, right up top, folks, Ursula Le Guin has died at the age of 88, and this one hits me personally hard. Author of The Left Hand of Darkness, The Dispossessed, the Earthsea series, and a feminist, materialist, sci-fi writer when they just didn't exist, man. So rest in peace, Ursula Le Guin. May you continue to change worlds. This past weekend, women's marches, huge, all over the country. Millions of people turned out. Hundreds of thousands of people turned out in Chicago, in New York, in Los Angeles, in D.C., and across the world. If anybody thought the Women's March was a one-off, well, guess what? We're back. And this year's celebration was not simply about an anniversary. It was about a recommitment to organizing. Trump's in Davos. They can keep him. He's got his own little protest there. And guess who didn't go with him? Melania. Good choice, Melania. I think she's back home now, kind of feeding leaks to the press. That's my own theory. Immigration deal that Trump is out there getting a lot of play in the press. But guess what? It's a closet white supremacist agenda. No joke. And Democrats have no strategy. They end the shutdown and just serve to suck coverage of the Women's March. Way to go, Chuck. Pat Meehan's having a very bad week. A no-good, very horrible week. Pat Meehan will not run for re-election in the wake of sexual harassment scandal, but still refuses to resign from Congress. Stick in there, Pat. The brother of Joe Gale, Montgomery County's whackjob Republican county commissioner, promises to run in Pat Meehan's vacancy. So we're all great. It's just nuts. And Rick Saccone, you know him as the torture candidate in PA's 18th congressional special election. Oh, we have some stuff for you on him. Big, huge news this week. PA Supreme Court put an end to PA's gerrymandered congressional maps. Unbelievable. With potentially huge implications for 2018. Republicans are whining real hard on this one. Bad, we didn't get what we wanted. Got a new proposal for free college tuition at Pennsylvania state community colleges and state universities. It's a press conference this past week with the Keystone Research Center, right, and the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center. Folks from ABSCUF were there too as well. We'll dig into that a little bit and see what we think about it. PA's 170th legislative district gets a strong progressive candidate to run against Martina White. Woo! And guess who's working on the campaign? We're going to get to you on that one. And then, in our last call today, it's Trumpy Bear. I kid you not. Trumpy Bear. Oh, God. But in space news, Trump paves the way to hand over the ISS, the International Space Station, to private interests. That's going to go well, I'm sure. Free Will Brewing Sour Sundays are back this weekend. They are filling their tap lines with sours, saisons, spontaneous wild ales, and all things funky. The food is going to be brought to you by the awesome Down to Earth Cafe. Oh, man, you got to wait to hear this beer list they got coming. Saucony Creek in Kutztown is now hosting local music artists every other Thursday in the brewery. They've got their Saucony Sessions going there. You can check out their schedule on their Facebook page. Just going to click down in the show notes for today. Next Thursday, February 1st, they've got the band January Noon playing at 7 p.m. at the brewery. Check out that and so much more. And, of course, we'll have more beer talk. We'll have more Sean workout talk, Kevin lose weight talk, all in that last call, too, as well. To remind you to turn into the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. I am back there giving the Resistance Report this week, and I'll tell you, I was in a mood this week. Rick gave me the rant permission. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. If you missed the show, just go to the ricksmithshow.com and click on the Free Speech TV icon in the sidebar. And if you like what you hear, you like what you read, you like Raging Chicken, if you just like the name Raging Chicken, you want to support, I know you do, you want to support Pull No Punches Progressive Media right here in Pennsylvania? Become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. If you're not ready to become a member, no problem. You can make a one-time donation by going to ragingchickenpress.org, click on the Support and Membership tab, then click Donate, and you're good to go. But we're still working on our Winter 2018 membership special, folks. Now through the end of February, you can get your own copy of Steven Singer's new book, Gadfly on the Wall, A Public School Teacher Speaks Out Against Racism and Reform. All you got to do is join at the $10 a month level. And I've been back and forth a little bit with Steven. Just been a slower start to the year than I thought. I would hope we had already had a sit-down with him for an Out the Coop Extra. But that's coming up, folks, too, as well. And wait till you hear, man. Steven's something else. Well, welcome, Sean, man. Woo! Quite a week, huh?
We're going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. The Eagles played this past week, right?
Yeah. So I actually have a good story about that. I am finally getting my voice back after Sunday night's game. We decided to go watch the game at a bar called Mr. G's out in Harrisburg. It's a little bit north of the city on 6th Street in Susquehanna Township. And it is like the premier Eagles bar in all of central Pennsylvania. I had a really good time. I was sitting there with one of my college friends and a bunch of people. It was a bipartisan group of legislative staffers there, too. So we had a really fun time. It was awesome.
Oh, so you're doing a little bit of unity for the country? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Or at least the state?
There might be things we disagree on, but the Eagles, they're not one of them.
They're not one of them. Oh, God. I went to, we had a kid's birthday party this past weekend, and so it was one of my son's friends, and we went there, and this one family they're friends with, right? There's 3, maybe 4 kids in the family. And, they're big football fans, Eagle fans and stuff, but the one kid just loves football and has got a whole bunch of different jerseys, right, from all different teams. So he showed up at this place. It's like one of these bounce places, right, with a Vikings jersey. And I was talking to his dad. His dad's like, I told him, I warned him. I don't know. Sometimes you just got to learn the hard way. So.
It's a teachable moment.
Yeah, teachable moment, exactly. Especially you're going to like a trampoline place. I don't know if that's what you want to be with a Vikings journey. Game day.
Before we start talking, did you happen to see the video of the guy running into the subway pole?
No. What was he trying to do? A Harry Potter move?
So there was
9 3/4. Boom.
Obviously, he was a little inebriated, and he was trying to he was hooting and hollering at the closed subway doors, acting like Donkey Kong, I guess. And he starts probably just as big as Donkey Kong, maybe just as round. But the train starts taking off, and he starts running full speed, and just hits this hits the subway pole head first. And there's a reverse video of that's from the inside the train, and there's a video from outside the train. And when you see it, he hits the pole, and the way he falls, his head bounces off the moving train, and he's lucky he didn't lose an arm or lose a head or something.
My God. Well, okay, so I got to ask you this now because I'm looking at you. I can see you. Now, obviously, people listening to the podcast can't see you, but I see you, and it looks like you got a little bump on your forehead or something. So is this your way of trying to kind of tell us that was you in the video? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think that might just be from me laying down in a really awkward position. But no, that was not me. I was not nowhere near Philadelphia. I was not in any bar fights or anything. I'm a lover, not a hater.
I'm a lover, not a hater. I was at a bar with Republicans, Democrats, socialists, anarchists, libertarians. We were all together. It was a wonderful, wonderful day.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Well, I just got to say, just get this out of the way at the top, is like, you're not a big sci-fi fan. I know that. But Ursula Le Guin, I mean, she basically, like, broke all sorts of barriers in the sci-fi world. I mean, so women, science fiction has got a tradition of kind of having really kind of breakout amazing women writers in there. So, but Ursula Le Guin has kind of charted whole new territories about kind of colonialism, capitalism, sexism, gender identity. It spans the gamut. I mean, she has been a celebrated, figure on the left. For a long time, especially sci-fi folks on the left, and in the show notes, I'm going to put a couple links in the show notes, and if you've never read Ursula Le Guin's stuff, I mean, now is really a time to read it. I mean, she's got a great book called The Left Hand of Darkness. If you're looking for a place to start, I mean, The Dispossessed, you can't go wrong with The Dispossessed. It's the first book that I read of hers. She's also the author of the Earthsea series, which was eventually turned into like a TV show, but. Just great stuff. I'm going to put links to an article, kind of a tribute to her, that was written up in Jacobin this past week. I mean, she died on, I think, Monday at the age of 88. And there's also a great write-up on her history or her kind of career and stuff like that in the New Yorker. So I'm going to put those links in the show notes. Just a way to pay tribute to people who've been in the movement, right, and have been doing amazing stuff in different genres. Keep changing those worlds, Ursula Le Guin. You certainly helped change mine. So, tribute. So, Sean, man, this past week, I got to say up top, I mean, the women's marches were unbelievable this past week. I mean, there were concerns that, again, you've got, on the one hand, you've got the playoff weekend. On the other hand, that, last year's women's march, right after Donald Trump was inaugurated, broke like all records of marches in the U.S., largest marches in the history of the United States. And there were some concerns early on that, I don't know if we're going to get there, right? I don't know what's going to happen, but holy crap, that people showed up across the country, and what it turned into being, at least kind of like, kind of what I was seeing, what it turned into being very much is not just like an anniversary. Remember when we did that? It was more about, look what we've done, a celebration of the organizing and the movements that are going forward.
Yeah. I think it definitely goes to show you that the Women's March was not a moment, and it's definitely a movement. We're seeing it here across the country. 2017, Democratic women and Republican women saw the biggest gains when it comes towards getting elected to local offices. And I think we're going to even see more of that in 2018 once we start having state house races and, more local county elections. So, this is definitely going to be something that's going to be really interesting to watch. And, a lot more women are now getting motivated to run for office and even be campaign managers and stuff like that, and getting behind the scenes in politics and all.
Yeah, and I say not even just behind the scene in politics, but also kind of ramping up kind of really the building the power base too as well. And I think that we have to always come back and kind of recognize that too as well. It's like these women who are running for office in so many cases right now, they're running for office, but they're not just kind of like individuals that are saying, okay, this is a good shot. They've got a power base behind them. Right, in part because of the organizing that has been going on in every community, and the fact that I know, like I'd say at Kutztown University, we've got Amanda Morris, who's also our union president, and Colleen Clemens, who's also in my department, the two hosts of the Inside 254 podcast. They've helped, and Colleen Fitzgerald, shout out to her because she was our office manager for ABSCUF, our faculty union at Kutztown, and now she's just doing crazy cool work elsewhere. She's going to be on this show at some point too as well. But anyways, they were kind of hosting some of the trainings for women who want to be candidates. How do you run? Brought in training sessions at Kutztown University, and that's the kind of thing that's been happening across the state and across the country. And I even heard to the point where now I heard on NPR this morning, listen to WHYY, say, well, we've got a whole bunch of new, Democratic candidates and they've all got something in common. And they did all these sound clips of all these new candidates, and almost all of them were all women, first-time women running for office with this kind of as part of the movement, as part of the organizing. So, man, it was so great that for that Women's March to kind of serve as a recommitment to the movement, really. Yeah,
and also this, even here locally, I mean, they're the ones behind the Tuesday with Toomey groups that are still going active a year in, especially the local Indivisible chapters too.
Yep, no, that's absolutely right. So, man, awesome to see what you heard there too. We got that little clip, the poem that we heard at the front of the show today. We had a little clip from the Women's March here to one of those moments. That was in New York City. It was the one in New York, and that was one of the ones that kind of got me too as well. I'm like, man, this is really a movement that is going to make fundamental changes, and it's incredible. So. On the other flip side of things, right? So if you have the Women's March who are kind of building power, right? That was kind of coupled. Again, it was a nice pairing over the weekend in some ways, right? For those of us who are sitting on the progressive left and the progressive end of politics here, to see there's the movement where the power, the energy thing, and then you've got, for lack of a better way of putting it, a bumbling, no strategy Democratic Party leadership deciding to shut down the government, supposedly to support Dreamers. In the end, not supporting Dreamers, right? Shutting it down early, and kind of basically laying bare what a disaster the Democratic Party leadership is, at least in the Senate. I mean, I don't know what you think of it, Sean, but I was just shaking my head the whole time.
Yeah, and I saw a news poll. NBC did a news poll, and 38% of the people blame Democrats for the shutdown. 37% blame Trump for the shutdown, and only 18% blame the Republicans for the shutdown. That right there shows you that Democrats have learned nothing since the election about messaging and stuff like that. And it was really they caved on CHIP, the CHIP expansion, which is something that people want. If you listen to Sam Cedar this past week, he had a really good point that this is something that everyone wanted to do. It's not that expensive to do, and they could have got it done. And instead, they caved on not protecting immigrants and the Dreamers.
Yeah,
which was the crux of the shutdown, right. Which is why they went forward with it anyway.
Well, again, I was listening to Schumer, and I don't know if you caught Schumer's interview on Rachel Maddow. I mean, Michael Brooks on Majority Report actually replayed this, but the interview with Chuck Schumer, Rachel Maddow did with Chuck Schumer, I think it was Tuesday night. Is kind of one of these things that's a must listen, because she asked all the right questions, right? Pushing them on strategy and stuff, and he got all defensive, and it was all well, we don't have the wheels of power, so we just kind of do what we can do, and this is the best, and we've got this commitment by Mitch McConnell. You don't got any commitment by Mitch McConnell. I mean, Mitch McConnell is a freaking liar.
He's been playing you for years now.
Well, it's incredible, and he's saying it's and now we're going to be able to shame him. They've got no shame. I mean, it's astounding to me. And the thing is, let me be clear about one thing for everybody who's listening here. I want to be absolutely 100% clear about one thing, is that, say, standing behind and going to the mat for the Dreamers, right, I'm all in for, right? But if you're going to do that, you've got to know where your caucus is, and you've got to have a plan. Because if you think that, I mean, the Republicans immediately started rolling out, CHIP versus the immigrants, saying that the Democrats want to support undocumented immigrants at the expense of your children. Now, we know the Republicans have no interest or support of either one of those groups, but they were able to use that and move some of the messaging, right? And then Schumer's complaining about it as if oh my God, that's not
can't
true.
See this coming. How dare they?
But I mean, how could you not know that was exactly what they were going to do? And what was your plan in responding to that? The fact is they had none.
Yeah, and that was the biggest failure this week. I know some people are calling the vote for CHIP a success within the Democratic establishment, especially here in Pennsylvania. But I mean, you basically caved on your one main issue, which was to get protection for the Dreamers.
Right, and they did it at a weekend with historic marches in the street. Right, the timing was horrible. Right, and if you're going to do that stuff, you need to come out of that with a win. Number one. Right, and why on the earth would you suck out all the media coverage, right, of the Women's March, right, for your freaking ill-conceived shutdown? I mean, it was unbelievable to me. And like, I'm not saying they shouldn't shut down the government ever, but I mean, come on, where the hell is the strategy? And it blew my mind because I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, we know chip is a no-brainer, right? And that to put Republicans in a position where they would have had to kind of like say, say that they're going to vote against chip, right, in order to kind of do whatever the hell they're going to do. Like, why didn't the Democrats say that what we're going to do is that until we get chip fully funded, we are not voting for this and we're going to shut down the government, right? They could have come out of that with a win, and then they could have used that and spent their time with working in the streets with women across this country, with the people that involved the Women's March, right? And using that as the launching pad to take that movement and get everything behind the Dreamers, right? I mean, I don't even understand why on earth they can't see that as kind of like, this is your baseline. But man, if anything that's good coming out of that in my mind, it's that it shows you that the old school Democratic leadership, centrist leadership model in the party is dying on the vine right now, right? And the movement and the energy is in the streets, and it is with the young folks, and it is with the people that are kind of like, again, running for office now, coming out of last year's movement.
Yeah.
Crazy. Whoo! So if you want to hear more about that, folks, tune into the Rick Smith Show this week and listen to my resistance report because I was on fire about this. Crazy. All right, so I don't know. This is frankly, I really didn't want to talk so much about this, like, although it's just kind of crazy. But I was kind of a little happy to see that there were protests in the streets of Switzerland and Zurich ahead of Donald Trump's arrival in Davos for the World Economic Forum this year. And I thought that was that gave me a little bit of joy, especially given some of the signs that were out there, which, you know, the most brutal ones ever.
Again, are the P tapes real?
Tapes real, exactly. Exactly. You know, I think the real question is,
the wind whispered through the forest.
And Donald Trump came. We'll have more of that in the last call today, folks. But, you know, there is in Davos and kind of basically touting out, like, you know, America First agenda. And what was interesting, you know, that he had alienated a lot of Europe, right? Because, you know, his racism, his like homophobia, his, you know, like pile the list on.
Check.
Exactly,
check.
right? I mean, but in the World Economic Forum, apparently a lot, you know, because this is where the world's elite, right? You know, like the richest of the rich set policy behind our backs, right? He shows up there, and a lot of these billionaires that were at the World Economic Forum were all cozying up to Trump because of the tax cuts and the $1 trillion givebacks to the, you know, the top like 0.1%. So that was interesting to kind of see there too as well, to see who he's really courting.
Yeah,
nuts. Have you followed much, you know, I mean, because it's really interesting to see this unfold. So the Democrats cave on DACA, right? Now Trump comes out with his little immigration bill, and basically it started getting some really positive press. You've been following that at all?
I have not.
Well, it's kind of interesting because the headlines started out with, you know, Trump's new proposal. It looks like he's kind of moving on Dreamers, right? And he's looking forward to have, like, you know, something that will allow a path to citizenship for 1.8 million Dreamers in exchange for $25 billion in border security, right? And, you know, for a lot of folks who only read the headlines, I could see that looking at them, people being like, oh, okay, that sounds like a reasonable deal. It looks like he's moving. How
government's supposed to work. So you have one bad idea, one good idea, and you two meet in the middle.
Right. So okay, that doesn't sound too bad, right? Well, there's some problems here, right?
You're given a false choice.
Well, and Think Progress has done some work on this. Also in Mother Jones, they've got a great piece on this. Is that what we find out is that if you start getting into the details of the proposal, is basically what they're going after, and the Trump administration calls this pejoratively. They call this the chain migration, like the idea someone migrates and then family members can migrate too as well. Well, basically, in this proposal, it's going to put strict limits on this quote unquote, as they call it, chain migration, which disproportionately impacts, right, folks from Latin America, Africa, and other places, right? So basically what it is, this is a shadow or a closet way of targeting brown and black people, right, in the immigration rolls, right? Basically the way that's set out. So, this is, this is crazy. So it disproportionately affects kind of Latinos and people of Asian origins, on the chain migration stuff. But then there's another component of this, which is called the Diversity Visa Immigrant Program, which allows about 50,000 people a year to immigrate to the United States from underrepresented populations. And that disproportionately benefits African immigrants, right? Well, they want to take that away too as well. So, yes, there's going to be a path for citizenship for these 1.8 million dreamers, right? But the exchange really is that you're shutting out black and brown folks, right, in that same policy. So this is one of these kind of moves where you got to dig in below the headlines, and you really got to look at what that policy is. It is not simply like, okay, I'm willing to kind of have a little border wall in exchange for actually getting access to the dreamers, right? Because really what this is, the poison pill, and people are basically speculating that Stephen Miller is really the author of this, right? Stephen Miller, the kind of like the guy who dabbles in white nationalist circles, the guy who is basically the most foaming at the mouth anti-immigrant person in the Trump administration. He's the one who's behind this policy. So this is not good, folks. So it's going to be really interesting to see if that we're actually going to get any spine from the Democrats in Washington that are going to dig into this and make this a public issue, as opposed to playing politics with it and trying to say, hey, look, we both won on this. So potentially bad. Crazy. And especially, where the cost of it, we'd be paying $25 billion, right? So Trump can get his wall, and then we can exclude people of color from this country. Don't buy it, folks. Don't buy it. Nuts, man. A little break. So in more, I don't want to say fun news because it's not really fun, right? It's pretty nasty what's going on, but it does nonetheless bring me joy to see what's happening with Pat Meehan this week.
Yeah, he's been having shall we say, a shitty week since last Friday.
Yeah, so walk us through. Give us some of the background of what's going on.
So I believe last Friday or Saturday, a story broke that Pat Meehan was involved with a sexual harassment case that resulted in a payout and a non-disclosure agreement. One of the things Pat Meehan championed on the House Ethics Commission was trying to get rid of payouts for sexual harassment cases, through using taxpayer dollars. So it's a little bit of hypocrisy there. A little bit. And then, so, Pat Meehan then starts blaming the victim, and then he starts opening up a little bit, then saying that the victim, the lady in this case, he told her that she was his soulmate. He's in his 60s. This girl's in her 20s. After she told him that that she's in a relationship with her boyfriend, who is also in Pat Meehan's office, and that resulted in harassment against the staffer, and also the male staffer losing his job or being relocated somewhere else.
She was in what? What did you say? She was in late 20s, early 30s or something?
Like in her 20s.
In her 20s.
And so when Pat Meehan was questioned on this in an interview, he blamed this on Obamacare. He blamed this on the stressful votes of, the stressful votes he had to take, screwing over hundreds of millions of people in the country, losing their health insurance, tens of millions losing their health insurance. And he directed that stressfulness towards a staffer who was 40 years younger than he was.
I mean, this is kind of astounding. I mean, can you people sit with that for a second? Like, I started sexually harassing my young staffer and trying to kind of track her down because Obama.
And he wrote her a love letter too.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And the one thing that was with this, there was a non-disclosure agreement, which means there's a non-disclosure agreement on both sides of this issue. So, like, the female involved in this has to relive this now because Pat Meehan is blabbing away and she can't keep his mouth shut. And now it got to the point where he will not seek reelection because his extremely gerrymandered district and the shame he brought to the office. His district's going to be re-gerrymandered now in a more normal way. It does not look like a horseshoe running through southeastern Pennsylvania. And the shame he brought to the office. But he still has refused to resign from Congress, and he promises to finish out his term.
Well, there you go.
Then there's more.
Well, the good thing is, right, is that, so Pat Meehan is definitely, he's going to get out of there. So the good news is, right, that we're going to get some sanity in that district, right?
No.
Of course not.
One of the people promising to run in the wake of Pat Meehan's, not seeking re-election is Joe Gale's brother, Sean Gale. So for those of you who don't know who Joe Gale is the whackjob county commissioner from Montgomery County. He lives in his mother's house, so I wonder if they share bunk beds together at this point still. But Joe Gale has pretty much used the Montgomery County commissioner seat, the minority seat, as a way to weaponize it and just use it to spout off crazy conservative views instead of using that seat to what it really is, just to have good governance and making sure the county is running as it is.
Oh boy.
So got a crazy political family down there. I guess the gene pool in Delaware County is strikingly small.
So what's this look like? So you got Pat Meehan down there. So what is the like the makeup of the district look in terms of political breakdown? I mean, I know that some of this stuff is going to change, so that there might be openings there.
I mean, it's a heavily Republican district the way it's drawn. I don't know what the numbers are makeup wise, but it's like an R5 or higher probably. I mean, it's a district that it's a 65-35 district, depending on who's running.
Yeah, well, there we go. There we go. Well, we're going to be talking more about the gerrymandering case and the districts in the next segment. But this is kind of one of the ones to watch. All right, and I was telling you this before we went on air today too as well. I got my friend Stu over there who lives in Northern Ireland. Right, I'm getting like these Facebook messages from him with like articles that he's reading over there saying, "What the hell is going on in Pennsylvania?" I'm like, dude, it's pretty nuts. So, but it doesn't end there. Good thing, right? So it's not as if that we just got Pat Meehan, we just got Joe Gale, or brother of Joe Gale, right? It's just the whack job factor is kind of really strong in Pennsylvania, and enter Rick Saccone.
Yes. So last Friday, a story from The Intercept came out about Rick Saccone bragging that he was a consultant in Abu Ghraib after the prison closed. This is something that Rick Saccone's pretty much been bragging about for a while now. He's bragging that he's been in Abu Ghraib since he announced his run for U.S. Senate early 2017. That's when we got the crazy videos of, and my God will make a seed of a nation. Like that video, we got him going off on protesters about separation between church and state and the country being a theocracy, even though he says the country's not a theocracy.
We got to respect our godly heritage, Sean.
Yeah, and godly heritage. He said about 15 times, but afterwards, there was an interview between Mark Levy and Rick Saccone. And Saccone is bragging about his time in Abu Ghraib because he talked about it in his speech, in his actual campaign announcement. And there's a video out there by Roxbury, and if you watch it, basically Rick Saccone's running in circles. It makes you believe if Rick Saccone is lying about this, like this is almost like stolen valor, or he's just that batshit insane and he actually was over there. I highly doubt that he was in Abu Ghraib, but there are rumors, credible rumors that Saccone would walk around in caucus meetings and threaten to waterboard people within his own caucus. And I'm sorry, yes, these are rumors, but these are rumors that I believe to be true because this is pretty much an open secret. This guy is fucking insane.
Oh my God. Oh, yeah? You're not going to vote for my bill? I'm going to waterboard you.
He's just walking around with a wet towel.
I'm just going to take you, and I'm going to show you what godly heritage really looks like. We're going to do it at nighttime when the Capitol's shut down, under the dome where we can bring all the godly heritage down on your head.
But no, like some of the things I heard, you hear people like, I don't mess with Rick Saccone because he waterboarded people. That's stuff coming from like actual legislative staffers within the Republican caucus. Like this is not anything like that I guess people should be surprised about. But I mean, sorry, I'm still in the beans here, and I'll stand by it because the people I've built relationships with, this is the stuff they talk about, and he's like, this is what he actually jokes about inside private meetings and inside caucus meetings with other legislators and staffers.
Oh boy.
You can see why they want him out of Harrisburg.
Oh my God. Yeah. Tell me about it. That's like, that is something else. Well, maybe he'll be gerrymandered it out and he can find his godly heritage somewhere else.
Well, actually, so the gerrymandering case will not affect his election, his special election that's coming up in a couple of months.
Oh, well, there you have it. Oh boy, all the fun. Well, in the next segment, we're definitely going to get into the gerrymandering. Gerrymandering. I don't know what happened to my accent on that. The gerrymandering case. We're going to look at this proposal for free college tuition in Pennsylvania state colleges and universities. We're going to look at some cool news from Sean about a great candidate down in the 170th legislative district in the state, and so much more. So I just want to remind everybody that this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, and I want to urge you to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. You can become a member at, just go right to, here I'm going to say it again, patreon.com/RCPress. You can become a member for as little as $5 a month. So go to patreon.com/RCPress and choose your membership level, right? And if you come into the $10 a month level, you're going to get your copy of Steven Singer's new book of Gadfly on the Wall, A Public School Teacher Speaks Out on Racism Reform. I can't tell you how important it is that we're going to build up our membership rolls at this point. Is that already the crazy is breaking loose here in Pennsylvania, and with the the redistricting that we're going to see, right? Precisely because of the Supreme Court case, 2018 has the potential to be a watershed moment in Pennsylvania's kind of election, not just for state politics or not just for like the impact on the state, but potentially having a make or break moment in whether or not we take back, say, House and Senate race or the House races in D.C. So, folks, we're going to need people on the ground following this stuff. We're going to need to support the reporting. We're going to need to support our independent media. So become a member of Raging Chicken Press. Just go to patreon.com/RCPress and become a member now. When we come back, we're going to get into it, folks. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We will be back right after this break.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1921. That was the day Sid Hatfield and 22 other defendants went on trial for the murder of Detective Albert Phelps. Hatfield was chief of police in Matewan, West Virginia, when the United Mine Workers came to Mingo County to organize coal workers. The Stone Mountain Coal Company moved to smash union activity. They brought in Baldwin Felts detectives to evict union miners from company housing. Hatfield supported the miners' right to organize and urged locals to arm themselves. He confronted the detectives at the train depot as they were leaving town for the evening about the evictions they had just carried out. The detectives presented Hatfield with a phony arrest warrant. Surrounded by armed miners, a gun battle ensued, leaving at least 7 detectives and 4 townspeople dead in what is referred to as the Matewan Massacre. The trial was set in the Mingo County seat of Williamson, where Baldwin Felts agents lined the streets to intimidate those sympathetic to Hatfield and the others. The prosecution hoped to prove that Felts' murder was premeditated and used the testimony of paid spies who had previously attempted to gain Hatfield's trust and friendship. According to historian James Green, author of The Devil is Here in These Hills, the ACLU had advised defense attorneys to turn the trial into a prosecution of the coal operators by introducing in evidence the entire record of their conspiracy to deny the citizens of West Virginia of their legal rights. The defense successfully discredited these paid agents and won acquittal. When Hatfield and his deputies arrived back in Matewan, they were greeted as heroes by the entire town. Hatfield, however, had a target on his back. and would be gunned down a year later, sparking a Cold War which ended with the Battle of Blair Mountain. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Sound familiar, Sean?
Yes, it does. That was an awesome event that I got to see the other night in Northeast Philadelphia, of all places.
Well, why don't we start off there, just because we got the music interlude before we get into the gerrymandering and other stuff. So tell us a little bit about this.
So I am going to be helping out a House campaign in Pennsylvania's 170th legislative district, which is the far Northeast Philadelphia, Parkland, Somerset, or Somerton, and the Somerton neighborhoods. It's Martina White's district, and there's going to be a nice, strong progressive candidate running for this campaign. His name's Mike Doyle. Definitely go ahead and Facebook page, support Mike Doyle. We got links to it. But he is someone I met over the summer. I actually also met his campaign manager over the summer, Allison, and we met in all places in Washington, D.C. for the first time as they were getting arrested or preparing to get arrested outside of Senator Pat Toomey's office to fight the ACA repeal bill. Mike got arrested a total of 4 times over the summer, fighting the tax scam and fighting the ACA repeal.
There you go, man. And, you look through, I was kind of checking out his stuff and everything. When the guy's got solid, progressive, platforms. He's looking for, making sure that we're kind of taking care of the opioid epidemic, making sure that we're pushing for single payer in the state. He's a pro-labor guy. And
$15 an hour minimum wage. Check off all the progressive boxes. This guy's going to be campaigning on it. I believe that we can... conventional wisdom thinks that we have to run a conservative campaign up here. I believe that's not going to be the case. I believe that Mike can win this campaign, and that's why I'm helping out because, it's time to stick to our progressive guns here and, fight back and win.
Fight back and win, man. That is the deal. And the coolest thing when I saw you had the kind of soft Facebook launch that kind of this week, and I guess that you're going to have there's another kind of major event that's going to be coming up for announcing the campaign next week. But the fact that his campaign launch had mummers in the house was amazing.
Yes, he is part of the Furco string band. He struts in the string band. And, there were members of the Furco string band there, even though no strings were present at the time. But they were dressed up in costume. I walked in. I parked my car. I got out and see a bunch of guys holding like mummers costumes. Like, what's going on here?
Well, yeah. I mean, you sent me a picture like right away. You're like, "There's mummers here."
Yeah. I mean, this is such a great like social media spectacle. People were sharing this left and right, and basically all they said is, "This is so Philadelphia. This is so Northeast Philly." And no, that's what it is. I mean, like, yeah, something like this is. It was pretty good. It was hilarious. It was fun, and it's a great way to get your message out to people and grab their attention on your campaign.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, go check it out, folks. You go check out MikeDoyle4PA.com, MikeDoyle4PA.com. You go check out that website, kind of look at it. I mean, look at where he is on the issues. I mean, there it is, healthcare, the economy, immigration and civil rights, the environment, education. I mean, he's got his policies right out there, and he's looks like he can run a really solid campaign. And remember, going up against Martina White, who has been one of the most reactionary voices on immigration in the PA legislature, this can be really has some potential to shake things up in that district, right? Because on the one hand, like as you said, some folks think like the district is a little bit more conservative leaning, but you've got that old school kind of labor stuff, old school progressive threads that run right through that district.
Yeah, and one of his core messages for this campaign is going to be that the opioid epidemic is going to is ripping apart our communities, especially in Northeast Philadelphia, and it's not the immigrants. Mike himself is a recovering opioid addict. He's been clean for a number of years now, and this issue is going to be front and center for him. So this is going to be a message that resonates with people, and it's going to be something that could potentially be a winning message.
Absolutely, man. Well, I wish him all the best. And again, everyone go check it out. Mike Doyle 4PA.com. And, see what it is. Because, I think that one of the things that Sean and I talked about this last week or a couple weeks ago now is that one of the things that we want to be doing on this show is that we want to be highlighting the progressive candidates that are running, that will be running from 2018. We hope to have bring some folks on for Out to Coop Extras and do some interviews. We'll have Sean do some interviews. I'll do some interviews just so you become familiar with them. So even if you're not in their district, right? I mean, I think as progressives and folks on the left, we need to kind of get a sense of kind of where we can actually put our efforts to kind of support, turning the House, like flip the House, man. How do we flip the House here in Pennsylvania? How do we flip the House in D.C.?
And one of the things that I would also like to add on top of this before we move on, you look what happened in Virginia with the House of Delegates, the way they flipped, pretty much flipped it to like an even split, even though they lost one seat through a lot. In Virginia, there was Democrat candidates received 100,000 donations of $100 or less, while Republican candidates received 7,000 donations of $100 or less. This is the small dollar donations, the Bernie Sanders style of campaigning of $27 and whatever cents per donation. That is the future platform for progressives, and that's really going to be able to allow progressives to run for office and take seats if they can capitalize on those small dollar donations, build up their war chest and not have to rely on traditional, you're going to have to rely on the traditional forms of donation, but the small dollar donations are going to add a huge dynamic to the way House campaigns are going to be ran throughout Pennsylvania and throughout the country. It's something that, progressive candidates and, first-time candidates are already using throughout Pennsylvania, not just here with Mike Doyle, but others throughout the southeastern PA. And really, it's a great way to build up their campaign chest.
Absolutely. And I want to, here's the thing, folks, too. Like, when you have candidates that are progressive candidates that are out there kind of using kind of small dollar donations, the importance of that, right, is precisely because it gives a power base, or at least a countervailing power base to, to any kind of corporate money that might come in a campaign. And, I want to give a special shout out to my union brothers and sisters that are out there, right? Not necessarily at the leadership stuff, because look, I'm going to be frank about this. I don't necessarily trust, right, unions like across the thing, the leadership to always make the right decision, precisely because they've been tied into the networks of power in the Democratic Party for too long, right? But rank and file members, right, the very kind of people, rank and file members who have been active in the Bernie Sanders campaign, have been pushing political politics, who have been joining up with the DSA, right? This is time for rank and file labor folks, right? Organized labor and organizing labor, and I wish I had a union labor to step up for these campaigns too as well. So whether that is small dollar donations or whether that's lending your kind of your time and your energy to help work on these campaigns, I think it's also time for rank and file labor to kind of step up and basically do an end around some of the kind of leadership issues that we have for the old style, the old school business unionism, the old school Democratic leadership, and have that energy from that rank and file, which is really the future of labor in this state, right? Especially after the Supreme Court cases with Janus and stuff that are planning coming down. We need to be stepping up to the plate there too as well and getting behind the progressives, right? So there you have it. That's my pitch for that today. And I think it's all the more important given what's just happened with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. The fact that we have this major decision, potentially, Sean, this could be like world
and there's nothing stopping,
so
anyone from bringing a lawsuit up against the state government now, start going after the House districts and going after the Senate districts. Also, before we get into that, two more things we should know. State Senator Stuart Greenleaf out in Montgomery County, he is going to not be seeking re-election. He's going to be resigning. Yep. And State Senator Chuck McElhenney, he's also going to be stepping down, and he's not going to be resigning. He's going to be resigning at the end of his term. We are seeing moderate Republicans stepping down, people who kept the sanity within those caucuses, who have pretty much thwarted any type of anti-union bills coming out. They've stopped these bills in their track during the corporate years. They stopped liquor privatization, during the corporate years. They've made some modernization to the liquor system, to the way beer and alcohol is sold, especially with McElhenney But, we're starting to lose more of these moderate Republicans that you need. And the only the only option is Democrats, or more Republicans or radical Republicans are going to be running to the right.
Right. Yeah, there you have it. So man, so break this down a little bit. What we saw here with the PA Supreme Court case on gerrymandering this week.
Pretty much the League of Women Voters and the Public Interest Law Center won on every single demand that they brought in front of the Supreme Court. The congressional maps were found wholly unconstitutional under state law. Therefore, they cannot take it to the federal court, which they are trying to do. They're trying to take it to the Supreme Court to put a stay on there. But the Republicans pretty much said there is no legal basis within their argument to have a stay on this. And it looks like we're going to be having new congressional maps within the next few weeks. And this can really shake things up within.
I'm sorry, what are you saying?
This could really shake things up within Pennsylvania. We can have these new maps within a few weeks. If you want to listen to something, listen to Sam Cedar, the podcast Majority Report this week. Mike from PA, who's an Allentown area resident, it pretty much hit this nail on the head. That basically, like, he added a lot more depth and context to it than some of your national political pundits. That you will now be having Republicans primarying each other because the way that districts might be redrawn.
I've been thinking about this. Actually, I don't know if you listen to Majority Report. I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear Mike from PA unless you're a member, right? Because he comes on in the fun half.
Yes, or unless you listen to the live show on YouTube.
Right,
you can listen to it.
Right. So I think I'm almost thinking what might be interesting to do is to reach out to Mike from PA to see if he want to do like kind of a little commentary on kind of what's going on, and we're gonna bring him on the show, because he had his analysis has been excellent, right, in terms of kind of what's actually happening. Kind of like on the ground in some of the congressional districts, so that might be kind of useful to have. See if you'd like to do a little segment that we can post up, because we could use that analysis for everybody. And just to kind of underscore the point you're making there, when Reuters was first reporting on the Supreme Court decision and stuff, they're saying that this new map could give Democratic candidates a chance to capture as many as half a dozen Republican seats in Pennsylvania alone. And that's huge, and that's just from those redistrict being drawn. This
and look
happening.
At like Charlie Dent's area, right? Charlie Dent's seat. Mike from PA talks about this. Lehigh and Northampton counties are solid blue counties. They became Northampton County became a blue county with the local elections in this off-year election.
Right.
Of all freaking places, like up in the Allentown area and the suburbs of Allentown. That's Charlie Dent's area. That is a blue area. There now we have really strong progressive candidates. Greg Edwards is one of them. He's a pastor up in that area. He is running for Charlie Dent's seat, since Dent is not as a progressive candidate. He is a minister up there. He held a Toomey town hall that had an empty suit up there early in the middle of 2017. Yep. He's been involved. He's also another one of these progressive Democrats, like Jess King, like Molly Sheehan, who have raised a ton of money within the past year alone.
Yeah, you've heard me say this 1,000 times on this show. Is like I think the future of Pennsylvania is in the Lehigh Valley, because if you look at just the demographics of the region and stuff like this, and the idea that is a conservative district is laughable if you've actually lived there like I have, right? It's laughable. The only reason why it's a conservative district has to do with the gerrymandering. So, for example, if you just you're looking at the maps and you look at the 15th district, right? That extends from there's a sliver that goes all the way out to the river, right? And then it extends through Lehigh County, through Berks County, through Lebanon County, and into Dauphin County.
Which is all the way up by me.
Right, exactly.
Pretty much Charlie Dent's district runs up to the Harrisburg border.
Right, and it follows.
The southern border of the Harrisburg.
Yes,
of Harrisburg.
It basically follows Route 222 and 22, right, on either side of that, and that becomes kind of a district. However, if you look at the Lehigh Valley, right, if you were just checking out that district and you look at the Pennsylvania state map, you see you got Allentown, you got Bethlehem, and you got Easton, which is a concentrated urban kind of area, urban suburban area, right? That that used to be the House of Labor in there, folks, right? But that has been split up, right? So you've got that that section added on to all these conservative districts, right? And then you've got this nice little sliver of the 17th district, right, which which kind of cuts out some of that urban support, right, and places it up into a district that is connected to Monroe County, Carbon County, and Schuylkill County, right, kind of much more conservative districts, right, as a way of splitting it up there too as well. Huh?
You look at Lou Barletta's district, goes up from almost 20 or 30 miles below the New York border,
right,
and goes all the way down into Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, which is almost 2 hours across. A 2-hour drive across. It's 120 miles pretty much from tip to tip.
Yep, and then you go down, and then you go look down and by field closer to Philly. You look at the 6th district,
horrendously gerrymandered.
Yeah, you look at the 6th district. You look at the 16th district. Then the 7th that is squashed in between there, which has been one of these battleground districts now, which we see, lots of progressive candidates stepping up.
But also, you look how they gerrymandered the Democratic districts. Look at the Pennsylvania 13th.
Yep.
The Pennsylvania 13th goes into pretty much where I grew up at in Northeast Philly, almost Frankfort Avenue, down in the Mayfair area, all the way out into the main line, and it cuts. It's just a mishmash of packing as much Democrats as possible into that district.
Right. If you have any question about, that was this a partisan gerrymander, is that, if you just look at the way where is the concentration of Democratic or left-leaning progressive votes? It's in the East and then out by Pittsburgh, right?
Allegheny County. It's pretty much it.
And that's where you see all the really severe gerrymandering. Once you start getting out into kind of the northwestern parts of the state, you don't see that kind of gerrymandering going on, right? Precisely because the Republicans know that those are solid districts as they stand.
Well, also, you look at some of the cities they split apart. This is pretty much taxation without representation.
Bingo.
If you live in Reading, you live in Allentown, you live in Erie, you live in some of the poorest communities of Pennsylvania, the poorest cities, they are split in half because you're cracking apart the votes at that point. Reading is split up into 3 different congressional districts. One of the poorest cities in the country has no one representing them because, it's split up 3 ways.
Yep, exactly. And to have, and again, you have a city, Reading is, again, you have a strong, really, strong immigrant populations there too as well, Latino populations in the area. And the fact that you've got some scathing, anti-immigrant right-wing people representing those districts, right? And that's their voice is disgusting. And so, this can potentially a sea change in this state.
And then afterwards, so the ruling was handed down on Monday,
mm-hmm.
right? And this is before I'm going to work. I'm like, all right, I have to go get something to eat. I was in the Capitol talking to some people, left the Capitol. I'm on my way to lunch, and my phone starts blowing up about the districts. So I skip lunch and go right back into the Capitol. And you see Drew Crompton, who's Senator Scarnati's spokesperson, seething with anger.
Yeah.
Drew Crompton's 6'5", really tall, lanky guy. And he's just walking around outside of the Senate caucus room with his head down, face is bright red, and just shaking his head. And they called this thing an outrage. Well, guess what? You know what? For the past year, these people have been saying, elections have consequences, with picking the Supreme Court justices, picking the federal courts. Well, guess what? 2015 election has had consequences, and this is the consequence of your horribly gerrymandered maps. They had the House, the Senate, the governor, and they had the state Supreme Court. They probably were not expecting the state Supreme Court to be flipped over the way it was in 2015 because of the porn scandals. And, Judge Castile being aged out of office. And then you had 3 seats that opened up.
There you have it, man.
And they weren't expecting the court to go from a Republican court to a 5-2 Democratic court.
Yeah, well, count your chickens, right? That's what they did. This is, I don't think we can overstate how big of a deal this is. Now we're going to see, I'm never going to be happy until the ink is dry, so to speak.
And the thing is, so I've been hearing from some people within the city. The Supreme Court already has the maps ready to go, right? They're waiting on the Republicans to make the maps, and the governor has to sign off on the maps that are made.
Right.
If not, it goes right to the maps the Supreme Court are going to agree on. And I hear there's already a map in place. They're just ready to have it to go.
Well,
at this
I
point.
think, again, this has been a smart move. And so basically the way the decision came down was basically saying, okay, look, you've got 19 days or whatever it is to redraw these maps. And, the Republicans are kind of saying, well, there's no way we can do this. It's too much. It took us a year and a half. Well, you know what? If you're not using kind of like sophisticated like algorithm computer
GIS
programs in order to break up
technology
districts, and you're not kind of dependent on kind of outside like Koch-funded consultants to come in and do this, you could probably get it done. And the fact is, so that just saying, okay, look, they got 19 days to do this, but not trusting that the Republicans are actually going to do it, you say, well, you got to have a backup, right? If you don't do this, okay, we got something that's going to go in and be ready for 2018, not to disrupt the electing cycle.
And this is going to be extremely disruptive anyway for the campaign that's been going on. You change Meehan's map, you make Meehan's district more congruent and contiguous.
Bye-bye.
Well, guess what? That's going to change a lot in southeastern PA.
Yep.
It's going to have a ripple effect throughout that whole entire region.
Yeah, you're going to see that in the Lehigh Valley too as well. I'm telling you, this is going to be something. So get ready.
I can't wait
folks.
to see the before and after photos.
Yeah, well, I already told you that. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, just because Pennsylvania is so crazy. It's just wanted to get just kind of the big laminated kind of map of the PA congressional districts, just for kind of shits and giggles, so to speak, because it's just so nuts. But now I'm going to be able to do the before and after, so that's going to be really cool to see. So, anyways, other big news this week was potentially big news. Let's say that it's at the very beginning of a campaign, is that we have a new proposal that came out for free college tuition at Pennsylvania state community colleges and state universities. This was announced on Tuesday by the Keystone Research Center and the PA Budget and Policy Center. And basically, they're putting this initiative called the Pennsylvania Promise, right? And the report is called, Make Pennsylvania Promise, Making College Affordable and Securing Pennsylvania's Economic Future. And it's an interesting move, right? So basically, it looks like they are taking kind of a page from New York State and wanting to basically saying, look, if New York does it, we can do this too. And so here's what the Pennsylvania Promise would do. So it would cover 2 years of tuition and fees for any recent high school graduate enrolled full-time at one of the Commonwealth's 14 public community colleges. So that's one. The second thing it would do is cover 4 years of tuition and fees for any recent high school graduate with a family income less than or equal to $110,000 per year and who's accepted into one of the 14 universities in the state system of higher education. It would also provide 4 years of grants ranging from $2,000 up to $11,000, depending on family income, for students accepted into state-related universities like Penn State, Temple, Lincoln, Pitt. And it would provide free tuition to adults without a college degree, with priority given to those seeking in-demand skills and industry-recognized credentials, such as apprenticeships, so on, as well as college credit. So we see this as, this is a pretty significant leap forward, especially you had some state Congress people there. You had a representative for ABSCUF, the faculty union representing the 14 state college universities, throwing their support behind this. It seems like a move in a really positive direction.
Yeah. No, and we it's amazing where the dial has gone from the pay it forward model, we were talking about like 3 or 4 years ago at the Progressive Summit, to free public higher education in Pennsylvania. It's good seeing the progressive community moving to the left on this issue.
Yeah, it's really good. Now, what's going to be interesting to me, Sean, is that I'll just kind of put my cards on the table here, is that I have problems with this kind of model for free college tuition, right? In a very similar way that I had the problems with the way that New York State did its kind of like means testing, so to speak, right? Who gets free college tuition and who doesn't. I'm a big fan of, say, look, if you're going to do free college tuition, you make it free for everybody, right? Therefore, everyone's in, right? That you don't use this as a wedge for particular people, because you know who's going to be the loudest resistors of this and detractors from this. It's going to be families that are making $112,000 a year. right? The people at the top are most likely not going to go to these anyways. But what you're effectively doing is you're splitting up the middle. And I understand why you do it, right? Is because you say, man, those people who can afford it should pay for it and so on. But in terms of an ethic, right, in terms of how you actually advocate for a policy, especially like free college tuition, it should be on principle. Right? Not on balance sheets. On principle is we need to make college not just affordable, we need to make college accessible for everybody. Right? We need to have free college, right? Why? We should join the rest of the kind of industrialized world, right? And make sure that that higher education is available for everybody. Doesn't matter where you come from. Right, you get access to that stuff. And then you get a larger swath of buy-in to as well. And, again, what's interesting to me, and this is going to see how this dynamic plays itself out, is you remember we talked about this in the fall, right, is that the PA Student Power Network, right, they have been, again, this is a statewide organization that has been kind of, again, just gaining steam over the past year and a half, that kind of originally kind of got formed during the 2016 election around ABSCUF's faculty strike, and they kept the organizing going. And now they've got a fairly well-established statewide network of students and activists who are kind of putting forth initiatives on their college campuses and making cases for statewide legislation. So you've got everything from advocating for a $15 minimum wage on college campuses, right? But also pushing for a $15 minimum wage in the state. They were also launched a program or launched a campaign for free college tuition in the state. And if I remember correctly, right, they're advocating something much closer to what I was just talking about, right? Not wanting to kind of split the segments of the population up. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this dialogue develops between student activists, right, faculty activists, frankly, like me, right, and the people in these policy making bodies, right? I understand where they're coming from, but I think from a political perspective, if we end up with this, with the PA promise, right, I'm happy, right? But I think for the political purposes, we have to start with free college tuition for all, period, right? And that's where we begin from.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And we also should be pushing for student loan debt relief programs for graduates of, especially for graduates of the state schools, and also programs for those who have public service in the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has one of the highest, averages of student debt. Students graduating with debt from the state schools, $30,000 a year, and that's just downright disgraceful.
Exactly. We have some of the highest debt in the country. Exactly, you said it. I think it's like, the second or third highest debt in the country, something like that?
I think it's the highest.
Is it the highest? Student debt in the country, right? There's number one, right? And at the same time, we are third from the bottom, right, in public funding of higher education, right? So what does that mean? You take those two things together. Like we've seen, if you've been following Raging Chicken for any period of time, you have seen these maps. But basically, when the state system of higher education, for example, where I work, started back in 1983, is that you had about 60+% of tuition and fees and all this stuff was covered by state appropriation, right? Was publicly funded, right? And whatever the remainder of that is, like 30 some odd percent was covered by students and their families, right? Right now, it's completely flipped and gotten worse. Now, over about 75% of tuition and fees are covered by students and their families, where only about 25% are covered by state appropriations. Right. So basically, what that means is that over that period of time, is that you've had state legislators, right, and these are Republicans and Democrats alike, have been in lockstep moving forward and allowing for the cost and the burden to be offloaded from something that we consider as public onto the shoulders, right, of working class families. Right, because that's who we see primarily are the folks that go to the PASSHE universities. Working class and some middle class families are the folks that end up going to PASSHE schools, and so that's where we've unloaded that debt burden. So there's one of the kind of main drivers of that kind of student debt, at least within the state system of higher education. And then of course we see the tuition at the state-related schools and the private schools going up too as well. So all that is there, and it's kind of unconscionable. So I'm in 100% on this. Is that if we're going to solve this problem, on the one hand, you can say, how do you actually fund and invest in higher education as a public good, right? That's the free college tuition forever. And the other thing, how do you take care of the debt, right? That our students, right, and new graduates, newly graduated students, and people that are just out of school for 2, 3, 10 years. How do you deal with that kind of debt issue on that side?
Yeah.
Right. Because can you imagine, Sean, if you could have just take anything that you had, any kind of student debt that you had, and basically say, I don't need to worry about that anymore? I mean, what that opens up right there.
No, it would be a huge boost to the economy in Pennsylvania. You know, people my age would be able to go out and buy a car, go out and buy a house, get married, have kids, you know, stuff that, you know, keeps the economy going.
Yep. Yep. So I'm going to throw one more thing in here before we get into the last call.
Oh, please do.
Oh, yes. So let me give you this. I've been going back and forth.
Taking that pin out of the grenade.
Yes. Here comes, I'm taking the pin out, folks. So I'm going to give you a thing. There's this guy. His name is Howard Bunces. Okay, and Howard Bunces is at Western Michigan, I think, or Eastern Michigan University, and basically he's in the business school there, and basically one of the things that he focuses on is that he focuses primarily on looking at the way that public higher education in general, but public higher education in particular, is how it's budgeted, right? How it's funded, right? And the kind of discrepancies between what is claimed, right, in kind of the budget proclamations from administrators, state administrators, and publicly funded universities, what is claimed from there, and what the actual balance sheets and the actual audited reports show, right? The problem here is that most of us, when we look at, say, the PASSHE schools and a lot of public university systems across the country, is that what we've been told now for a long time is that there's a crisis, right? Is that there's an enrollment crisis, or you name your crisis, but the end game is always that there's no money, right? We have a budget crisis. There's a huge budget crisis. We don't have enough money. We've got to do things. So that leads to people throwing up, oh, I guess there's nothing we can do. So, okay, we're going to cut faculty funds or faculty lines. We're going to have to increase fees on students, right? We're going to have to cut pensions. We're going to have to cut health care, right? We're going to have to kind of do more with less, right? I mean, it's the classic capitalist move. And this has been going on for a long time as public university systems begin more and more to adopt this kind of neoliberal business model. Right. So, that's been part of that progression. The same reason why we see that, the switch in fees that I was talking about before with kind of student debt and funding. OK, and tuition. So we've got that. So anyways, Howard Bunce is what these does. And now we've talked to him at Kutztown. We've talked to him kind of like over the years. For years ago, ABSCUF, my faculty union, we basically had Bunces come in and speak to us as our statewide assembly, right, to talk about what's happening in budgeting and how to understand budgeting. Because frankly, faculty members do not understand this themselves. Many unions don't even understand this about the kind of the shell game that's happening in budgeting. Okay. So Bunces came in. He basically showed us that the proclamations. This is years ago. What the PASSHE, the state system of higher education, is proclaiming, right, about its budgets, right, is a load of garbage. Right, it's a load of garbage because they're doing things. They're showing us their budgets, and their budgets are budgets. They're not the actual financial documents. So think about it like this. What a budget is a wish list. This is the kind of the thing that as we would like it to be, right? So if I'm thinking about what I want to do as an administrator, what I want to do as part of a school this year, next year, 5, 10 years down the road, right? And I'm going to be budgeting for those stuff. I say, okay, in order to kind of have my new swimming pool, right, or have my new sports complex at my university, I need to be able to put, $200,000, maybe, $500,000 a year into a savings account. Okay? So I take that money and I put it in a savings account. Now, what I show on my balance sheets is that money is gone, right? I show that money has disappeared because it's an expense, right? That $500,000 is gone. Well, it's not actually gone. It's in the bank, right? So that's a perfect scenario. And in a perfect situation, right, that's actually a good way to budget, right? Is that you want, instead of having to take out loans for stuff, that you save money for something in the future. I get that, right? That's fiscally conservative, whatever you want to call it. But you're saving for something in the future, right? Now, what PASSHE has done, what my university, Kutztown University, has done, what East Stroudsburg University has done, what Westchester University has done, what every single state system of higher education and public university in this state has done, right, is basically said that budget, right, with my balance sheet showing that I no longer have that $500,000 when released just in the bank, that demonstrates how we don't have enough money to do to fund our schools. Okay, So what have they done, and how have they increased that money? By cutting faculty lines, by increasing tuition to students, by increasing fees, right? So by offloading cost onto students, right, by forcing faculty to work more, teach bigger classes, right, and having more temporary or precarious faculty come in, you've been able to take that savings that have been off the back of students, right, and faculty, and put it into a bank account, right? And all the while throwing your hands up in the air and saying, crisis, crisis, the sky is falling. Okay. So that's a little bit of the background. So what we did at Kutztown, a group of us, is that we decided that we've had enough. We've had enough with the kind of garbage that we're hearing from our university administration and the garbage that we're hearing from the state system of higher education about their freaking crisis, right? We know that, and we've been saying this for a long time, and if you go back in the pages of Raging Chicken Press, you'll see my article called Wall Street on the Susquehanna, where I unpack some of this stuff. And this was back in, 2011, 2012, or no, 2014, I guess, is when that article came out. Look at James Sosonsky's article in Salon, right, documenting some of this stuff in higher education too as well. So we look at that and we said, you know what, enough of the games, enough of the smoke and mirrors. We're going to get a breakdown of what's actually going on in the budget in a way that we can understand it, because our administration, we know, is basically lying to us. So what do? We commission a report from Howard Bunces, right? We pay for it ourselves, right, to go out and do a financial analysis, an independent audit of Kutztown University and the state system of higher education, all right? And basically, this is going to be my preview. Next week, there's going to be a full full launch of this, and you're going to see right here in the pages of Raging Chicken Press. You are going to see the full report. You're going to see a full breakdown of kind of what was going on there, what Howard Bunce's report shows, right? But as a little teaser in this, right, we're basically seeing that when the state system of higher education and when Kutztown University and any individual university in the state system of higher education comes up and says that they are in a budget crisis, right, it is a fiction. That we are looking at, brace yourselves, everybody, we're looking at a state system of higher education that is sitting on a pot of gold around $1 billion+. Okay? You have university systems.
That's with a B.
That's with a B, folks. We've got university systems that are basically out here, university systems that, or our university schools, our universities that are saying that they have no money, right? Now, listen, if you're in business, right, and this was shows also in this report, if you're in business, right, or you're in higher education, right, if you have, you have to get, you go through these audits and you have credit agencies that have to look at your books, right, and they say, okay, look, a good place to be is to be able to have about 25% reserves. Right, so that basically you can continue to operate. If if the world comes to budgeting stops and banks are destroyed, you can operate for 3 months just on what you have in reserve, 25%. What Bunce's report says is that what we're looking at is not at 25% in reserves, right, but close to 50% in reserves, right, which is considered by the bond agents to be exceedingly high, okay? Which is one of the reasons why Kutztown University and the PASSHE state system of higher education, despite the fact that they cry budget crisis everything, have been able to keep a really good credit rating, right? They keep a really good credit rating because those crediting agencies, or the crediting agencies, not the accrediting agencies, I'm sorry, the lending agencies, right, like Moody's and so on, they get access to the audited reports, the actual expenditures, not the wish list budgets that the universities shop out. Okay? And they say, looks great. And this is what happened when this got exposed. If people remember this a couple years ago, right? This got exposed. I wrote about this in Raging Chicken Press too as well. At Westchester University, right, we saw there was a concerted effort between the university administrations, individual university administrations, in this case Westchester, and the state system of higher education to create 2 sets of books. A set of books that shows what the actual expenditures are, what the auditor report shows, and one that shows the crisis, one that shows budget proclamations. And they would use their budgeting as a way of kind of showing how the crisis is out. So therefore, we got to cut more faculty. So therefore, we have to raise tuition and fees on students. That we have to try tuition schemes like this kind of pay-per-credit tuition schemes that have been rolled out that is causing tuition increases of 18 to 25% in some of the state system universities, right? They're offloading, right, the cost onto students' back so they can suck it out and take that profit and stick it in the bank for their pretty projects, right? It's disgusting, right? And, I waited on this for a while, and I've had it. I'm done, right? Because this is got to stop, right? And that we need everybody to pay attention to what is going on here because we are destroying the futures of our students by saddling them with all this debt. Right? We are getting faculty and staff to buy into their own demise because they believe there's nothing else we can do because the sky is falling when it's a fiction, when it's a lie, and you got these people who will look you straight in the face knowing it's a lie and say, look, there's nothing that we can do. We need your help to figure out where to cut. Screw you people. We're done. So look at that next week. This is going to be hitting we're going to be having kind of hopefully multiple events where we're going to be making this stuff public, right? And I'm sure by even talking about this today, I'm going to piss some people off. But you know what? I'm done. I'm done waiting. I'm done being careful. I'm done kind of like waiting to see what happens or not wanting to piss people off. I've been reading this book called This Is an Uprising, right? And in This Is an Uprising, it's I'm going to forget who's the dude who wrote This Is an Uprising?
John Nichols?
No, not John Nichols. This is the one, Smucker, right? No, it's not Smucker. I'm going to kill it. It's going to come back. Anyways, this book is called This Is an Uprising.
I think I have it on my Mark Engler? No?
Yeah, Engler and Engler, right? So Mark Engler and his dad, I guess, I co-wrote
Brother.
this thing. Right, so Mark Engler's book, This Is an Uprising, and in that they're kind of going through and following through some of these campaigns, what actually happens in social movements and how power is actually achieved. And one of the key things that they come back to again and again, right, is guess what happens? Is if you actually care about significant social change, right, then you have to be willing to make people uncomfortable. Even when you're advocating for the best possible world, very often what it means is that you're upsetting the pot and people are going to be pissed off. And it's sometimes the divisiveness, quote unquote, that you cause by causing a ruckus, by saying the truth. Speaking truth to power, we're supposed to like that stuff, right, folks? Right? Sometimes the ruckus that you cause is exactly what social movements need to do in order to be successful. Hoping that the other side is going to see the light is just like fantasy talk at this point, folks. It's the same thing that the Democrats did, right, when they said, okay, we're going to put our trust in Mitch McConnell. Mitch will help us this time, right? You're a fool, Chuck. And we are going to be fools if we believe that we can play nice with people that are offloading their debt, offloading costs onto students' backs by cutting faculty members so they can profit take and have their pet project with their names on the buildings authored. This is nuts, folks. So I, for one, am done with that kind of garbage. I am done with playing nice, right? And I think that this is the opportunity, like folks, like say, for example, in the PA Student Power Network, activist organizations, there's a great, we publish on Raging Chicken Press. PASSHE's got, this organization that just got founded about kind of like looking at higher. I have to come back and I'll tell you in the last call. I'll remind you what it is. I'm too mad right now to remember the name. But on January 1st of this year, we published something from a new coalition that's kind of looking at kind of like the neoliberalization of higher education and the resistance to that. So we're going to be paying attention to this like stuff the way. But stay tuned, folks, because it's going to get hot. Right. And I just hope that this is going to be the launching point where we're going to see a rekindling the same kind of spirit that we saw on the strike lines between faculty members of ABSCUF and student activists that were kind of out on the lines too as well. When we had a glimpse of a future, of a possible future, when it was our campus, when our lives, with our education, with our vision of what could be was front and center, not the bean counters and not these kind of neoliberal like acolytes who are sitting there and causing us to go down the drain and saddling our students with debt in the future. and diatribe. So that's what's been going through my mind, folks, right? And it is what it is. So what do you think, Sean? Too much?
I think some Trumpy bear will ease the mind a little bit.
Trumpy bear? You mean...
The wind whispered through the forest. A storm is coming. You cannot defeat the storm.
You cannot defeat the storm. That's right. We're going to come back to Trumpy Bear for the last call today. All right, folks, this is Kevin Mahoney. I'm hot. I'm bothered. And this is Raging Chicken Press's Out the Coop podcast, sitting here with Sean Kitchen, muckraker in chief out there in Harrisburg. We want to remind you, if you like this, if you like progressive media, if you want to bring the fight to your community, if you want your fight covered in a progressive independent press, then go to patreon.com/rcpress and become a member of Raging Chicken Press today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press at the $5 a month level or more.
I'd like to put one more thing out there.
You got it.
I'll be having a short blog piece coming up. I haven't done much writing yet in 2018, but I will have a nice blog piece coming up within the next day or so, basically pointing out Lou Barlez's connections to white supremacist Richard Spencer.
Oh, it's getting hot, folks. It's getting hot in here.
So imagine, this is going to be a nice little thing thrown into the Pennsylvania Senate primary.
There it is, man. I think the word for 2018 is... This is Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. We're going to be right back with Last Call. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Over the past 6 years, we've brought unapologetic, progressive, activist media to Pennsylvania and beyond. We've helped hold those in power accountable and shine a light on some amazing activist work. We've broken national stories and established a reputation as an aggressive, independent media site. As newsrooms close and traditional journalists lose their jobs, hard-hitting investigative news suffers. If we care about our democracy, we have to find new sustainable models of journalism. And frankly, no one's going to do it for us. After the Trump election, we dug in even deeper. Thanks to some longtime members, one-time donations, and a shift in other resources, we brought on more writers and started paying them. Now we're doubling down and want to expand our infrastructure and pay our writers even more. We need to invest in our media if we have a chance to resist the unprecedented assault on democracy, working families, women's rights, and our planet. History will remember the choices we make today. So take a minute to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. For as little as $5 a month, the price of a local craft beer or a cup of coffee, you will be supporting homegrown progressive journalists and media activists. Go to RagingChickenPress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab to become a member. Leave a one-time donation or learn about other ways that you can help. We don't have billionaire backers. Keeping progressive, activist media going strong depends on you. Thank you for all your help and support. Keep up the fight.
The wind whispered through the forest. A storm is coming. You cannot defeat the storm. From the trees rose a resounding voice. I fear nothing. I come when the trumpet sounds. I am the storm, the great American grizzly. Introducing the original Trumpy Bear.
Trumpy
the
Bear!
Fearless, super plush American grizzly. Trumpy Bear was born June 14th, Flag Day. Just find the secret zipper
You got
and pull
yours,
out
Sean?
the flag blanket. Then wrap yourself in the red, white, and blue for comfort and warmth. Show your patriotism and proudly display Trumpy on Flag Day and on any American holiday. Trumpy can even honor your own family heroes.
It is Trumpy Bear. Man, I am so glad that you found that ahead of today's show. That, just made me laugh my living ass off.
So the way I found this was one of my coworkers. He's a night owl, pretty much. Stays up, plays video games a lot of the night. He was watching a documentary on Nazis on American history, like one of the military American history channels. Mm-hmm. He's been to Germany a few times. He does not support Nazis. He travels to Germany a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Back and forth. He's fluent in speaking German, and he's like, "Dude, I got this thing called Trumpy Bear," and I'm like, "What?" He's like, it's like a Saturday Night Live skit. Basically, this thing is like a 2-minute like Saturday Night Live short, pretty much, and you can't tell if this is like the thing's real. I mean, this bear is real. You have to see a picture of it. It's a teddy bear with like the Donald Trump hair on top, brushed over the side, and then there's a pouch in the back of it for the American flag. And this bear is real, but I can't tell if this is like a satire from someone who is trying to make money off of the Trump people, or is it an actual Trump supporter who made this. But the fucking thing is real.
Dude, I'm looking at the page right now, man. GetTrumpyBear.com. 1995 plus shipping and handling. It's yours.
I think we should send like Trumpy Bear gifts out to people.
Dude,
become a member today for $20.
I will tell you right now, I'm going to make this commitment to anybody who stayed with us today to the last call segment, right? If you join at the $10 a month level, become a member of Raging Chicken Press at patreon.com/rcpress. At the $10 a month level, you become it before next week's podcast. That's so before February 2nd, I will send you your own Trumpy Bear. So you want your Trumpy Bear? You want to go see what it is? Go to gettrumpybear.com, right? You don't want to spend your money because you don't know like where the hell this stuff is going, right? Let me do it for you. I will send it to you, right? If you become a member at Raging Chicken Press for the $10 a month level or more, because this thing is so freaking hilarious, and I don't even know, I don't even know what to think of it. Like
it plays like all the right wing, like jingoistic, like talking points and propaganda. Like you have the Army veteran in there. You have you have the token black person in there. You have everything. It goes from like everything. Like it is phenomenal. You have to watch the video. You have to watch the video on YouTube for it.
Look at the go to the show notes, folks. Today, look at it. Then I got a link in there for Trumpy Bear. Man, I'm serious. I think I'm moved to like you become a member at $10 a month. I will send you Trumpy Bear because it's just too freaking hilarious. And insane. And look, I have have you ever seen those little action figures? They do the they're put up by like a company called Factory. They're like there's the Trump action figure, there's the Obama action figure, Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren. Have you seen those, Sean?
I have not.
Well, I have all of them. There's a Bernie Sanders one too as well. I have them all, right? And they're in my office. It's like I haven't taken them out of the box yet, so I'm doing like kind of like action figure geekdom here by keeping them in the box, but they're in my office. And just as the kind of memory of this period of time in our history, right? This Trumpy Bear thing, right, is one of those things. Right? I mean, I just cannot ever imagine something better than Trumpy Bear as a way of kind of remembering what it is right now.
I also found something else today that is just as ridiculous that you have to see. Out in the special election with Connor Lamb, the Republicans released a video. Like Mary had a little lamb. Mm-hmm. It's a 44-second political ad that the Republicans put out in a it's called Nancy Had a Little Lamb. Nancy had a little lamb. Little lamb. It might be like it may possibly be like if you want to waste like it's probably the most like thing you could I don't know how to explain it. You're just wasting 44 seconds of your life. It is like you will never get those 44 seconds back, and it might be like one of the worst produced political ads in the history of campaigns.
All right, you got to do me a favor. So before we get off today, I just put in Nancy Had a Little Lamb kind of in the show notes. You got to put the link in there for me because I'll post that in the show notes for people too as well.
Yeah, John Mysick tweeted it out this morning. It is so bad where, like...
You don't even have words for it? Is that what you're telling me?
It's so bad. It's like ridiculously bad. And so John has a thing titled "New GOP TV Ad in Key Western PA Races So Bad It Might Be Good for Connor Lamb."
Okay, ready? Here's a little taste, folks.
Nancy had a little lamb. Nancy had a little
Oh my God.
His views were left like her.
I have to stop it. I can't take it.
It was like the longest 44 seconds of my life. I was like, once you start it, like I was 10 seconds in, and I was just like, all right, I gotta commit. I'm in it to win it. I have to listen to this straight through.
And this is the National Republican Campaign Committee who put this out. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
We are really living in some fucked up times. So
Dude, we're definitely pulling that sound for future shows.
Yeah. So one of the things, so this week, I guess we're going to get some normal things. I took my first camera lesson this week.
Oh, very good for you.
And basically the person said, I'm pretty much like advanced to the point where I know how to work the camera mechanically. We talked about some different technical things, ways I should focus. And so right after the lesson, it was like 50 degrees out, right? And drizzling. Mm-hmm. And like the sun was out and all. And so there was a lot of fog coming up off the riverfront in Harrisburg. And I took this awesome fucking photo. One of the things like in Harrisburg I love so much are the bridges that span the riverfront. And a lot of these bridges are old stone or concrete arch bridges going back 50, 60, 100 years. And the one bridge I got, the old Norfolk Southern Bridge line, it's not used anymore. I was able to get the stone arch bridge, and I took it at such like a wide angle where it looks like the bridge is going into like infinity at that point. And just like it looks like something like Halloween time with the fog coming off of it. And one of the things is I took a picture of that. I must have had like 8 or 9 people request me to make prints for this and sell it to them. Yeah, within the past week.
It was gorgeous, Sean. I mean, and the thing was, what was interesting about it is that almost all the time, it was the lighting in that shot, right, and the lighting that it cast on the bridge, right, and the kind of it's like almost like kind of like sepia kind of like color, but natural. Right, like in some of the colors, that was just, it was really, it was stunning. It was really cool. And I had never seen an image like of a Harrisburg Bridge that kind of had both that lighting and that perspective in those colors.
Yeah, and some of it's obviously done in post-processing. I try to keep it as like natural as possible,
Yeah,
but
sure.
The way like the fog was coming off the river, it almost looks like a painting. It almost like the picture almost came out to look like a painting.
Yep.
So I'll be making some prints for that. I definitely got a few people asking me to make prints for them and selling it to them. So I'll be getting around that stuff probably in mid-February once things like settle down for me a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to have some prints that are going to come up and, sell to some people.
Yeah, and maybe we even get Sean to put a link on Raging Chicken Press where you can pick up some of his prints. I mean, that would so you can get it directly, so we can help Sean and his emerging kind of political consultant move.
Yeah,
Sean is going to be like a one-person political machine soon, I think. Well, cool. Well, I got one kind of not serious, but is one space news thing that I'll kind of go quick on. That is just kind of interesting. There's so much other stuff happening this week that I didn't, but this one did basically catch me. Basically, you have, and again, this stuff flies below the radar. No one really pays much attention to this, but the White House. This is from the Trump administration. The White House, and I'm reading this from SpaceNews.com. Right, so the White House's next budget request for NASA will likely include plans to end the agency's operation of the International Space Station by the mid-2020s. The plan could create new opportunities for commercial space ventures, but has already generated opposition from one key senator. Right, so and I just kind of put that on the kind of the space news for the week in part because, like, here you go. This is everything I've been talking about in terms of galactic capitalism. This is actually happening as we go. If you imagine, for those of you who've read Marx, right, or kind of read history, like that one of the first things that happens in capitalism, right, is that you have to have the enclosures, right? You have to take those things that are public and you have to privatize them and break them up and control them so they can be turned into commodified spaces. So this is exactly what's going to happen with the International Space Station under this. So what basically Obama did was, by ending the shuttle program, putting up nothing else in this place, was effectively handing over the kind of the launch systems to private industry. Now we're seeing, a public resource that is up there in space, right? The International Space Station is going to be potentially going to be kind of chopped up and contracted out, just like we've seen here, on our home world, right? So something that I'll probably be coming back to follow up with this policy is haven't a chance to look at the actual proposal yet or see a lot of whole discussion on it. But, man, that's one of the things that just kind of pricked up my ears for the week. So there's that. And the other thing is good. It looks like the weather's not going to be so bad this weekend. I got my kids a telescope for Christmas, and so this might be the first weekend we're actually going to get some relatively clear skies. We can actually kind of get out and kind of check out some of the stars. So maybe we can find the International Space Station, which would be kind of cool, kind of fun. So that's my space news for the week, Sean. See, so you don't have to take a nap today. Oh, man. So a couple of things on beer news, right? So very, very cool. Sour Sundays are back at Free Will Brewing in Percy this weekend. And they're filling their tap lines with sour, saisons, spontaneous wild ales, all things funky. And like I said in the beginning, Down to Earth Cafe, kind of local institution here in Percy, will be providing the catering. Their beer list is freaking cool looking. So on tap, they're going to have 2017 Life on Pears Saison, right? They're going to have 2017 Blood and Guts, 2017 Peachy McPeach Face. That one's for you, Sean.
That beer is awesome.
Yeah, 2017 My Wild Love, 2017 Coosa Saison, 2017 Creek Nouveau, 2017 Wit Sour Ale, 2016 DC Cranberry, which I love, by the way. That DC Cranberry, I love that one. 2015 Ali Ode Brune, and a 2015 Cuvée Argur. I don't know how to say that thing. But that's all going to be on tap at Free Will this weekend for their the return of Sour Sundays in 2018. That's really cool. And at Saucony Creek out in Kutztown, they're now hosting, I just thought kind of a cool thing to let people know about. They're now hosting local music artists every other Thursday in the brewery. They also have got a lot more live music on the weekends and stuff there too as well. They've got the kind of like Saucony sessions. They're kind of like dubbing some of these things. It'd be kind of really cool if they'd start doing recordings of this stuff and putting out CDs or MP3s and stuff. That'd be awesome. But they've, check out their schedule. You go to their Facebook page and check out their schedule. And I know that next Thursday, February 1st, I've got a band called January Moon will be playing, and beginning at 7 p.m. in the brewery. So if you haven't been out to Saucony Creek, what's kind of cool about that place is that, it's actually, they call it's a brewery and a gastropub, and the food there, I've said this before on the podcast, but the food there is all, kind of locally sourced, really cool, like organic ingredients, like with local sellers. The menu's changing all the time, precisely because they're working with, in-season stuff there. It's some of the best food that I've had. It's like, it's reasonably priced. You can sit there, you can have some awesome beer, and you can have some awesome food and listen to some great music now too as well. So check it out, Saucony Creek, and that's a kind of like right on 222, right? Kind of on your way out from Kutztown University on 222 toward Reading. But literally it's like a minute past the university on 222. So, anything going on out your way, Sean?
No, not yet, but Pizza Boy will be releasing Turkey Burglar Berliner Weiss within the next week or so.
What exactly is that?
It's I have never had it. It's the first time they brewed it in like 3 years, so it's actually before the time I started bartending there. Mm-hmm. But it is a Berliner Weiss, which is it's a German Hefeweizen that is soured. So it's a nice light German beer that is a sour beer. So it's really good.
Oh, I can't wait for that one.
And I think Berliner Weiss and the Goza, right, which is another German style. It's a Berliner Weiss with salt solution added to it, are the only two German styles that do not follow the purity laws that are actually allowed in the purity laws because of how long they've been brewed in Germany. So they're the only two beers because they, I think you actually need bacteria to sour the beers with the purity laws. So, or with these two beers, obviously, right. You can't just sour it naturally. You need to put bacteria in it, which gives it that sour taste. And that will, it's a little fun fact.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And I'll give my one last little piece of news here is that I'm very happy to report that, I mentioned this before. It's like, 2018 New Year. So I've dropped like more than 10 pounds. So I'm very happy about that. So if you want updates on kind of like my, like return to kind of like decent health, I'm going to try to do it here in part to hold myself accountable. So that's totally selfish on my part. But I'm very proud. So I'm very happy. So Sean's going back to the gym. He's going to be. He's hitting. We're going to start seeing him posting his reps on Facebook once again to compete with the alt right. I'll just give you my how I'm doing. Oh man! Is anything else for the good of the order this week, Sean?
No, just stay tuned for my bombshell piece on Lou Barletta and his connections to Richard Spencer's white supremacist, some of Richard Spencer's white supremacist buddies.
Man, I can't wait to see this. This is literally, we were just talking about this in the show beforehand, and then some stuff is coming together. So, yeah, definitely look for that.
It will be topic of discussion next week, faux show.
You can guarantee it. And then look for my piece coming out, looking at the Bunces report, on PASSHE schools. And then also, we're going to kind of get into and dig into some of the stuff on this new Pennsylvania Promise proposal for free education in Pennsylvania. I'm going to try to talk to some of the folks in the PA Student Power Network, maybe some folks from APSCUF and some of the authors of the report, to kind of get some perspectives on why they went this route, and kind of what they're hoping to get, and to see if there's going to be any movement on this. Again, this is just a report, a proposal right now, and I'm really curious to see if this is something that that is going to get introduced. I mean, I think right now the time is hot, irons are hot, it's time to strike. So. Not strike, but, get some free tuition for everybody. How about that? All right. Well, here it is. The end. It's our last show of January of 2018. How awesome is this? So this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Sean, man, have an awesome weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
You got it. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. This has been Out the Coop Podcast. Until next week, everybody. See ya!